Hey there, I'm Ginny.
And I'm Monica.
And this is Hitting Her Mark,
Podcast for women in the arts, actors, filmmakers, artists who are passionately chasing their creative dreams,
all juggling the beautiful chaos of caring for the ones you love.
We're here to share stories, insights, and inspiration, proving that you can hit your mark without compromising what matters most.
So if you're ready to make your creative dreams a reality, let's dive in.
Award-winning writer-director Simone Stock creates vivid performances from a distinctly emotional point of view. The Girl Who Escaped, Kara Robinson's story garnered 3 Canadian Screen Award wins: Best TV Movie, Best Direction in a TV Movie, and Best Actor, and earned a DGC nomination for Outstanding Direction in a TV Movie. Over 270 million TikTok engagements have been tallied to date. Stolen by Their Father, which Simone also directed for Lifetime, earned 2 Canadian Screen Award nominations. TIFF nominated Simone's comedy short Motown Morning for Best Short, and sci-fi short Iris screened at Cannes and was broadcast on TMN and won awards around the world. Simone is set to produce her sci-fi feature Starlight, for which Simone won the Telefilm New Voices Award.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Hitting Her Mark. Today, we have the fabulous Simone Stock, who is an CSA award-winning director. And she has been in the business for a really long time. She has worked her way up, so she doesn't know just about directing. She knows about all the ins and outs of it too. And we are so excited to dive right in.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. We always like to start things off with your journey. You've got a nice tale to tell. So why don't you start from the beginning?
I have my prejudice. I'm going to blow it. No. Not going to make it nice. That's generous of you to say, but it is true. Sorry, I have a dog at my lap who's very anxious to be part of the show, and I may just have to allow that.
Yes.
Yeah, I came up through the business. I went and got a film degree, a cinema studies degree that I didn't realize wasn't going to teach me much about filmmaking per se, which I was too embarrassed to tell people for the longest time. It's true. I could have gone to what we now call TMU, which was then Ryerson, but I didn't. I elected to get this academic degree in a very unconscious sort of way. And only in my 4th year did I get one production course and realize this is the thing that I really love. But finishing the degree, I thought, how do you get a job doing this? I had no clue. So I started as a caterer. I was the person who brought lunch to the film set, and they couldn't tear me away. So one of the ADs generously helped me get a job in the office where I made coffees and continued to get lunch and did everything I could to just sort of soak it up. I never complained about the ridiculous hours that we worked. I never really wanted to go home. I was very happy to be there. And I met a woman from Santa Cruz who was like so cool and so completely like from Santa Cruz, you know what I'm saying? And she like worked for this director who was a very big TV director at the time. And I'd said like, how did you even get this job? And what do you do? Because I noticed she was in all the meetings. She got to go to the props meeting. She got to go to the wardrobe meeting and was a fly on the wall. But I thought, man, that's where I want to be. How do you do that? And so she just sort of told me her story. And I started running around telling anybody who would listen, I want to be an assistant to a director. Do we ever get those jobs in Toronto? And as soon as they started to manifest, oh, there's this Simone girl who wants to do that sort of thing. So that's what I did then for quite a while. I worked for directors and then producers and then actors and learned a lot about what informs everybody's process. It was an invaluable education. Some people were actively mentoring. One person, Roger Spottiswoode, actually helped me pivot my entire career. I became his second unit director, which was like manna from heaven. He was such a supportive person and continues to be an enormously supportive person in my life. But so too did a woman named Claudia Weil. She insisted I be at every creative meeting taking notes because I thought she needed these notes, and it came to pass. She just wanted to give me a legitimate claim to being there.
That's so nice.
To being meaningfully engaged. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. And then having some horrible bosses screaming in my face was also a terrific lesson of how to not do the job as well. So yeah, it was a wonderful apprenticeship. And then I, through determination, begging, stealing, crying, whatever it took, managed to get on some bigger work, some bigger television that I've been doing lately. Yeah.
Right. Can you tell us about that first big opportunity when it was like, I'm the director?
Well, that's funny. I had that as a second unit director. I felt that. My first day I was in Rwanda on a feature. I had about 150 extras who I had to stage in a fight in a ring around these two UN officers who were having a fight themselves and had to drive away in a Jeep. Like, okay, deep end of the pool, man. And that most certainly felt like I am irrefutably in charge. I have no one to turn to, except you do. You do have the stunt coordinator on whom you can rely, and these amazing actors who know their character, know their process. And we had collaborated going in. So I was kind of surprised at how supportive, and I won't say easy because it never feels easy, but it wasn't hard in the ways that I expected. So it was deep end of the pool from the drop. But when it was just me, it was different because working as a second unit director, I always was in the service of what Roger's vision was. And I always had to, in the same way I think that episodic television goes now, you have to kind of be on pattern with the show. Totally valuable skill. But when it was just my movie, it was still not even my movie. It was, well, this is for Lifetime or this is for Hulu. So what are those stylistic principles? But still, it felt like I get to do this collaboration with less kind of impact from above, if you will. And it was more free and more exciting, but also a little more.
Sure. That's a few chest pains in there. But I mean, it's total immersion that way, right? It's fantastic. What a better way to learn. You're in it. And would you say that that's the best way sort of for a stepping stone to becoming, to then holding that role of director? Is it working your way up on a set, learning all the different roles, and then you have that better understanding once you've hit that director role as well?
It's funny. I mean, I remember listening to, when I was a director's assistant and an actor's assistant, various departments complaining ultimately at the end of the day. But it was curious what their gripes were informed by. Like, oh, this lens package doesn't allow the cinematographer to do what they really want. Well, because we don't have whatever the heck we wanted on our truck and we don't have the resources to do this, it makes this difficult. Or sometimes it was just, this person is a miser and mean to us. So when they want us to kind of go that extra mile, why would we be inclined to do that? And it wasn't always that transparent, but it was pretty obvious. And so I always felt, well, I continue to feel lucky to be here. And so there's a part of me, I think, partly because I'm a woman, partly because I'm me, that's a people pleaser. So while it's to a certain degree keys to the kingdom knowing, okay, this is what makes the departments tick. This is what's important to them. Or for performers, knowing some actors really want to get finals just to have that moment to simmer down before we roll. When I'm rushing, it can be tempting to just say, we don't need finals. Oh, I just forget it. But if the performer needs it and the makeup artist has told me that, okay, don't get in the way. So having assisted actors, I felt like I had a window on that. But then I've worked for directors who never did any of those things, couldn't care less about any of it, and just mete out orders and demands in a way that sometimes struck me as more efficient. They didn't feel so encumbered by bothering anybody.
Right.
So I don't know. I think ultimately you prep better when you understand what everybody has to do better and what they're up against and what those diminished resources might mean.
Yeah, you factor it in.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it can kind of go both ways. Sometimes I wonder what would it have been like to just say, do what I say. I don't care how difficult it is. But it's not really my jam.
And I think at the end of the day, you always just want to be authentic to yourself. Sure, so-and-so director, he shouts out demands, he gets the job done, probably gets all kinds of accolades for not taking any shit. But you do it your own way and you're still getting the job done and you feel good about it at the end of the day. And people probably really like you. Well, on top of that.
But the thing that matters to me really is the audience. And sometimes I get to meet them. Sometimes people I don't know, like my vet, for example. I didn't really know my vets. And as we were talking and he was administering this shot to my little dog, he said, oh, so what do you do? And I said what I did. And I mentioned the girl who escaped. And he gasped and said, I've seen that. Oh my God. And he started to tell me the whole story. I thought, well, I know the story. But people often want to do that. They want to share,
They know.
Yeah, well, but it's interesting. They revealed too what they connected with, which is part of what I thrilled to in hearing it. So knowing that you can forge that connection with the audience, I really believe it starts with all the relationships, all of them, with the performers, the cinematographer, the designer. It really all, I think it comes through. I think the audience can feel those intentions. So
Absolutely.
As the director, you wear so many hats, right? You're leading the vision of this storytelling piece. You're in charge of the crew. You're in charge of the cast. You're in charge of the creative vision. Can you walk us through, for those, who might not understand or know, what are all of the responsibilities of a director, sort of from inception of a project down to sort of completion? Because I know there's a lot there.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I don't even know how to answer that in a way. I think when a script is good and it kind of speaks to you, kind of like when you read a book and you can, like, I don't know if you've ever been in a book club or talked to someone, about a book that they like. I find often people say right off the hop, "Ooh, and I could see it," or when they see an adaptation of a book that they love and say, "Ginny would never look like that." So, you know what I mean? I think just being aware of your primary responses to the text as you sort of encounter it and knowing, okay, this is how this character would likely dress, or these are the things I'm seeing. One of the things I think over time I've trained myself better to do is just write those experiences down as I first kind of encounter the text, because I generally pivot back to them. So that's definitely one part of it. And then to sort of refine what that vision is. So I try to understand what lens is that I'm seeing in my mind's eye, or how would I describe the patina of this look to a collaborator like a cinematographer? Or what's the movie that looks like that? So I can say, oh, it looks like Spy Game. Those shots in Spy Game? So those kinds of things. So the responsibilities on the creative are those kind of look things, those tactile things. But then also, what's the emotional journey of this character? And for me, so often there's some kind of blood, sweat, and tears, whether it's mine or somebody I care about, that winds up flowing from my life into the characters that we're creating. So that's another part of it that just feels necessary to me for it to feel real and sort of what's doing.
What about for all of our actors? Selfishly, what is the director's role mix in with like the casting directors and the producers when it comes to casting all of the actors? Yeah. Do you have a say in the casting, like casting directors? Like, yeah, tell us, talk to us about that process.
Well, I've signed an NDA, Jimmy, so I'm a little limited in what I can.
We'll never know.
The difference is, but the casting director has the relationship with the producer, and the producer often, and on the television side, has the relationship with the network or the broadcaster. So they have a very intuitive, refined sense of what's right for them. And performers that they feel strongly about that sort of work in their canon of work. So they make that, well, not they. So then I'd say the casting director makes those primary selects. And different casting directors do it different ways. Some, will give X. Other people will give X times 2. And sometimes they'll ask me in advance, what do you like to see? And I love actors, so I could do auditions and watch auditions all day long, really. Which is sometimes helpful too, because let's say, oh, we want to book Ginny. Oh, well, now she's not available. What do we do? Oh, I saw, Monica's audition. She was terrific. Why don't we, instead of using her in this part, use her in that part? So then I make my selects and we talk them over with the producer, and, we go to network with them, and we always have to give them, here are options, because ultimately it's their show and they decide.
So ultimately it comes down to the producer. I mean, heavily influenced by the casting director selects, and then of course your selects.
Definitely. But it's Lifetime. There's a casting director at Lifetime who ultimately, in the case of Lifetime,
right,
it's their decision. I mean, it's their movie ultimately. So it makes sense.
When you have a say, what do you look for when you're looking to cast someone in a film? I know you've done a number of short films as well. So I'm just curious, what is it that draws you in usually? What's that special something that you're like, that's the person?
This is sort of like saying, like, how do you fall in love with somebody, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just that ineffable thing. But I know for me, I mean, I've studied acting only to have respect, because it's so hard. So that if, someone on the floor is, I know they're Meisner trained or whatever it is, I don't just think, okay, I don't know what the hell that is. I do know what that is.
Yeah.
So how can I help or not help or get the hell out of the way or whatever it is? So I guess in part, I mean, I always read the resumes. For me, that's big. It makes me nuts when I don't have the resume. Because even when people are new, if they've done Shakespeare on the Park, that's still a lot of lines you had to memorize. It's still a lot of character to carry around the stage. Now you're doing the truncated version of Hamlet. Like, good luck. So, I mean, I'm a sucker for the training and the skill, but it's never necessary. I've worked with people who have absolutely none and are just stellar. And then, I don't know, I think it's just, again, as that character lifts off the page when I read them, there's just something in some auditions that brings it to life in a way that feels okay. And then equally, there's the departure where I think, oh shit, I didn't think, that's different. Right. I didn't think of going that way. And so I love making those kinds of things, like a third sort of selection. Like if we wanted to take it in a slightly different direction. I mean, it sounds obvious, like good actors But I don't know all my colleagues would necessarily make that distinction one. But good is often just sort of innate. And I think it's just the energy for that show that you bring. Because as you guys know, I mean, sometimes like you're perfect for this thing, but not so right for that. And so too for directors. Like, oh, I think I'd be great for this show, but I wouldn't know what the hell to do with another one. So that's such a crappy answer. Just be an actor.
There.
You know what? It's less though it informs us in the way that, and we've heard so often, don't try to do what they want because they don't know what they want. And you hear all these things and you've kind of just confirmed that, yes, sometimes there's that straight path where it's like, it's sort of obvious what's written on the page, but it's also sometimes it's the unexpected choice that pops. So really be yourself, be your best self.
Oh, totally. Because that's what the audience connects with.
Yeah.
When like my mother would say things like, I remember when we were at Stratford and a woman who'd played Lady Macbeth in a production we saw came down the street. And my mother was an avid theater goer. She knew better, but she couldn't stop herself from going, oh, Lady Macbeth, there she is. So, you know what I mean? When you make it your own, you really do. And I think the audience can feel it when we're being a version of the thing that the thing is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm pretending to be like the way my sons kind of do with teenage girls in their classes. Like, they all sound like that. Well, there's no way they sound like that. But I know what they mean when they.
Yes.
Yeah. It feels like it feels a level removed, right? Whereas when you're bringing your full self, there's an authenticity there that, that people can recognize and connect with, which, makes so much sense instead of giving a version of something you think somebody wants.
Yes.
How did you learn to work with actors? Like, is there a specific way you like to work or provide direction? Is this something you just learned over time? How do you
I don't know.
approach that?
I never feel like, no, in truth, I don't. Like, I don't feel like I know what the hell I'm doing. And I had the good fortune to watch directors who had a lot of skill with actors talk to actors. And it was pretty obvious. It's just a conversation, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in terms of, how are we conjuring this moment? What are the emotional connective tissue points to get us here? But then there were more technical things. I worked for Liam Neeson on a show that Harrison Ford was in. I worked for Anne Bancroft. And these are people who know, okay, so on the 100 mil, I need to be here. Like the degree of technical expertise they had was terrific. So when someone tells me, or we on a, what can I just say? I'm better here. Okay, good. Yeah, dude, let me know. So I let actors know as best I can at the beginning, like it's safe. Our work is always going to be private. Whatever you want to talk about to inform what you're doing, or when you're frustrated and it's making you nuts, or if the day is making you nuts, I am always safe harbor. Because I feel like you kind of have to be 100% vulnerable to do the actor job well. And if I can't make the actors feel protected and sort of cared about, I don't know how they can possibly do their best work. So I don't know how I know how to do that. I think I just intuited that all along. And it has just seemed like in so many ways, the most important thing, because everybody hangs their emotional stuff on the performance. As beautifully as you may execute it, if they don't give a hoot about the people on screen, well, then it doesn't matter how, how good looking the lenses are and how great the costumes are. Yeah. So I don't know how I know how to do this. I think I watched other people and I read books.
Yeah.
But some of it, I think, is just instinctive. I just like actors.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that you say that, because I think sometimes for a lot of actors, that director-actor relationship can be really intimidating, right? We just want to get it right, and we don't want to take up time, and, we don't want to ask too many questions. I think hearing you say that, it's a safe space and you understand that this is a vulnerable moment and all those things. That's great to hear. I love it.
Yeah. The more comfortable the actor is, the better performance they're going to provide you, because that's so key. Relaxed. You got to be relaxed, right?
Yes.
And so when you're relaxed, you're doing your best work, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then you live your best life. I mean, there isn't a circumstance where that isn't true. Mm-hmm. And I know with like the television movies I do, like we have no time to do anything. So I try to talk to people on the phone in advance, or I try to be there at the costume fitting to at least just have that, hi, who are you in real life? And because so often it's self-tapes. If I'm lucky, I get callbacks and I can do a little bit of rehearsing in the callback, which I try not to tell anybody is what I do, but it's the only way I can connect with day players sometimes. Like,
yes,
this is the only 20 minutes I'm going to get with you. So this is what I think we're going to do. Because to your point, the days are hard and we're often working asynchronously. It's Well, Ginny, I'm thinking of when you and I worked together. It's 9,000 below zero. The light's not where it's supposed to be. Come on, man. Why isn't the car door shutting? Like all the stupid stuff that has nothing to do with acting.
Yes, yes.
So,
The snow is extra crunchy today.
what does one do about crunchy snow? Exactly.
Sorry, speaking about fantastic actors, Katie Douglas, who was in The Girl Who Escaped, the Kara Robinson story, she was just so natural in that role. What was the process about casting her? Was there an audition process, or was that just an offer, or how did that happen?
There were auditions, yes, and she blew us away. A lot of what you see in the show, she created in the audition in a self-tape. It was really masterful. And she is just so unassuming and so quiet. She's not a big, she's a little lady. I don't even know if she hit 5 feet, but her energy, as soon as you say action, is like a 1,000-watt bulb. But she's a very quiet and introspective person, and creating this character together was, I mean, a real joy, because she took it so seriously, wanted it to be so real and so authentic. And she and the gal who played her mom, Cara Buono, who is also exceptional, is so amazing. We had the gift of time for long conversations about how these bonds were, what trauma experiences like, not necessarily for us personally, but as they might experience it. But from casting, it was the same old. Looked at tapes, looked at lots of different people. And as I say, there were a lot of great people that we saw, but she far and away was yes, there she is.
Yes, and then she won the CSA.
She did indeed.
So
She did indeed.
awesome. Yeah.
And you've directed a few thriller projects now that have had sort of dark, heavy storylines. So I'm curious, when you're taking on these types of projects, there's a sort of a commitment for an extended period of time where you're working on intense subject matter. Is that a consideration? And also, some of these are based on true stories. There's quite a responsibility in that. So what is the consideration when you're taking projects like that on, knowing that this is going to be your world essentially for months,
It's kind of terrifying. When I read Kara, I remember saying to my husband, oh God, this is a guy who abducts a girl, like a young girl at gunpoint, and puts her in a giant Tupperware. And I thought, I don't know that I can even do that. I don't know that I can live with that. And the thing I kept circling back to was that the person to whom it actually happened lives with it. She talks about it. I mean, we're making this movie. She's clearly in a place of healing enough to know that sharing the story will have a profound impact on other people. So with that is kind of like a guiding light, if you will.
Mhm.
If she can endure the tragedy and then figure out a way how to make it a narrative, if I have the opportunity to tell it, when the script was in my hands, then I want to honor that as best I can. But it was scary. There's no two ways about it. How do we get this right? She was on set with us, and I remember thinking, I almost don't want her to come. I don't want her to. And when she did, she's from the South, so she has that very genial, very friendly, open demeanor. I have family in Tennessee, so I feel like I'm not saying this just as a vast generalization. It's true. She's from North Carolina, I believe. Anyway, I said, hi, it's so great to meet you. Thank you for being here. I'm so freaked out. It's so trippy that you're here. I got to just get that out of the way. And she laughed and said, I feel the same. This is pretty trippy, I have to tell you. So we kind of broke the ice for each other.
Yeah.
And she said, but it's important to me that this is happening and I'm happy to be here. Could I be in the movie? Could that be arranged? So she made it easy to just embrace where she's at now. Let parts of it be fun. We actually had trouble getting a handcuff off Katie when we were playing in the police station. Kara Robinson, the real lady, was actually working with law enforcement and sort of in victim services at that time. And she said, oh, I can help you with that. And then she goes and takes it. The engagement was pretty cool and very, very kind of hands-on. And I don't know why. It just struck me that also because she was a woman, that felt that level of ease with all of the ugly and sort of the honesty of it felt a little easier. But a lot of that came from her.
So I was just going to segue, like you've brought up being a woman on set, being the head honcho as the director. Yes. How has that experience been like? Have you found sort of any pushback from just simply being one of the few female directors?
Kind of. Like, it's changed. I will say Me Too changed things. I think it helped institutionalize a level of discourse that is acceptable and a level of discourse that is not acceptable. And it's palpable. When it started, I was more cynical. I was actually on a show, a web series at the time, and I thought, oh, this Me Too isn't going to really change anything. And I feel it. It has. There's just so here's a story. I was on a show early days, and I had younger colleagues. I didn't much think about that. And I had to bend over by my monitor to do something. And I made a joke about my bum, thinking somebody else is likely to do it, because coming up as an assistant, that wouldn't have been a foreign concept. And I would have been expected to laugh at the joke and be cool with everything. I think most women know what I'm talking about when I say this.
Yeah.
And as I turned around to see, hey, look, guys, I'm cool, they looked at me like, why did you say that? And I thought, okay, now I'm going to get and I apologized. One of the fellas said, yeah, like, we're not. I said, no, I get
That anymore. We don't go there anymore.
So I thought, okay, the world is different. But I mean, it was only 5 years before, maybe. I was in London on a show, and my first AD was a tall dude. He was about 6'2", and he had white hair. And half the people that would come to it was a second unit set. So sometimes we had dailies, or we had the animal wranglers were often like day players. They would always approach Paul and say, hi, governor. Hi, boss. Great to meet you. And he would very quickly say, lovely to meet you. I'm the first AD, and this is our director. And two of them said, wow, you're cute. And I thought, oh my God, seriously? But you just sort of keep your composure and say, I am. Yes. So let's have a look at these. Like,
yeah, what else are you going to do, right? Yeah.
What else are you going to do? You just, like, I still am the boss. And these guys, to their credit, were good at their jobs and didn't make my being a woman an issue. But there was always with those fellas, for me, well, how is this going to go? So I feel like that is completely diminishing, and it's not so unusual.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
I am curious, are there certain genres, Simone, that you're more attracted to? I mean, I know you've worked on a lot of thrillers. Some of the works you've written, though, they seem to lean towards sci-fi. But I also know that you have an upcoming comedy web series, Adult in Training. Is there a strategy, or when you're picking projects to work on, do you enjoy working across different genres? Or is it sometimes good to have a niche and a lane that you get to focus on? How do you structure that?
Right. I think when anybody is starting, whether you want a lane, a pigeonhole, or a niche or not, you're going to get one. So it's probably good to try in advance.
Yeah, same for actors. Yeah.
Right? Like, this is what you do.
Yes.
Okay. And nobody wants you to do the other thing. And that's okay. But to me, comedy and drama aren't really that different.
Interesting.
They're arising out of this. I mean, as performers, it's coming out of the same place. It's just some have laughs on the outside, some have crying on the inside, however you want to put it. So I think I gravitated towards the thrillers creatively because they have more flex visually. I think when it comes to rom-coms, visually, they're just more sort of circumscribed. We have more expectations about what the sets are going to look like and what the lighting strategies are going to be. We're not going to have any cool cinematography, if you will. Do you know what I mean? Not to diminish what those films are, but to do them beautifully and to give the audience the experience that they're looking for. You can do cool, but it's a pretty circumscribed version of cool. So I think just as a visual artist, that was part of the attraction, and just the level of the drama, the emotions that we could dig into with the thriller scripts. It just seemed like richer stuff for me to mine. But I love a good comedy. I love dark comedies particularly. So the more kind of gritty and real, the better. So I mean, if the universe allows me to do more genres, I most certainly would. But but to get started, I think you have to show a métier, a lane. And then it's finding those collaborators that help you and want to support you and, pushing out of it a little.
How does it work on the director side when you're trying to get, like, I know for actors, we have to audition to get a job, right? We have an agent. Our agent secures us an opportunity. How does it work on the director side? You have an agent as well. And then do you have to pitch your vision for a script? What is that process like?
Yep.
Like an interview?
It's exactly the same. Yeah. So they'll meet with me and the two of you, like, what's your take on the material? What's your approach? How do you see this? What kind of a story do you think it is? And they, make their decisions based on that. So yeah, it's funny. I call it auditioning too. Like I have my audition outfit. What am I saying?
Do you stack? Do you need like a pitch deck or like visuals when you go, or is it more?
It's so it depends on the gig, and I guess just how, because if there's also there's sometimes I think a right way to do things. I'm addicted to believing there's a right way to do things. So I'll say if they want to see this, I am more than happy to go. Ta-da! But usually they don't. It's more of a conversation, more of a, I guess, a feel for what the approach is. But once you land the job, of course, then it's I find anyway, it's pitch deck city because it's the easiest way to communicate. This or it also gives them opportunities to say, I was thinking this. Oh no. Okay, great. How about that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the same. It's effectively the same, but it's just not as circumscribed as the scene. You know, we talk about the story as a
whole vision.
Yeah.
And do you know how many people you're up against when you're going in? No. Okay.
I don't, but I can't imagine it's too many.
Yeah.
In part because time is of the essence.
Right. Especially with these TV movies, it's like a quick turnaround, right?
Well, and it's often, hi, are you available? Great. So if you get the job, you fly out like the day after tomorrow. Okay, kids, mommy might be leaving. Which is terrific, really. I mean,
Yeah. It keeps life exciting.
it does indeed. I just packed all those clothes away. Where am I going? Okay, take all those things back out. But you know how it is when you get a job. It's like nothing matters.
Yes, because it's something that we love to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is, you know, the sort of the point of the podcast. But having a family and having kids and having to oftentimes have to just pick up and go. Do you ever feel that pull of like, I don't know, do I need to do this? Or is it always a discussion with your partner first before you can say yes? Or how does that work?
It's all of those things. I mean, I've always wanted to do the movies that I've done. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to get to the point of my life where one for them, one for me. That's okay. I've just been fortunate, I guess. I like to do what I've been doing. I will say to my husband, yeah, like, you know, this is going to be in Kelowna or it's going to be wherever it is. And I'm going to be gone for 7 weeks. Is that okay? And he always looks at me like I'm a moron and says, well, yeah. But I do feel like not so much that I have to ask permission, but you know what I mean? When you're in a partnership, a marriage with anybody, you want to say like, is this okay? But I think it's an understanding that it is. I mean, that's just what we signed up for.
Yeah.
But
the idea is that it's profession. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't know what we signed up for.
But it's funny though. I mean,
Yeah.
you do. And then it happens and you realize, oh, this is how it feels.
Yeah.
Like I cry on the way to the airport every single time. I cry on the way home because I'm excited. My husband always says, don't cry when you come in. He freaks the kids out. But I must do something.
With that, so you started your career, you know, doing the things, but you didn't have kids, right? Like you started your career first. Did you become a director first and then get married and have kids and do all that stuff? Or
I met my husband in high school, so I've known him for a long time. And we've been together for a long time and we both worked in the business. So there's never really been any separation between church and state. And I think I have been trying to be a director, struggling to be a director, you know, for a long time, certainly since before kids on and off, but I didn't quite know how to get started. And I also didn't realize the degree of opposition I had. You know, I grew up in a very feminist household at a pretty feminist time. Women can do whatever they want. We didn't know yet the statistical realities of, you know, for every 98 men directing, there are 2 women, and one of them is Leslie Linka Glatter. So good luck. Like, it was very difficult, and the forces against women getting hired. We now know we're pretty transparent and pretty real, and required almost legislative pushback to open some doors. And again, in not very much time, it now feels a little less, oh, you only got this job because, hey man, I don't care why I got it. I got the job. So I think they evolved concurrently. When I got pregnant, I didn't think I could. So I wasn't planning on it. It wasn't this grand master plan that came together. There was I'm pregnant. That's what's wrong with me. Oh my God. It kind of evolved at the same time, but there was something about becoming a mother, I think made me that much more determined to make this work. And I think on a certain level gave me a confidence I didn't have before. Something about making you know, like when your mama bear comes on you and you don't know where that came from. Like, you know, you will put those down and you will, oh, whose voice? Oh, yeah, that's me. There was something about the
Yes.
determination of being a mother helped my process of Nicholas as a director.
Right.
That makes so much sense to me because think about who multitasks if not a mother? Who knows how to get shit done if not a mother? It enhances you as a director, I would say. It's skills that you could put on your resume. You should just put mom on your resume.
Right. And you're responsible literally for human lives.
Yes.
And you keep them alive. Things are moving and you can take care of adults on a set.
It's funny when I have kid actors, and so often I've had young performers. The ADs always start with me on, well, these are the rules, and this is how much they're allowed to work. And I'm like, I'm a mother's man. I can tell you, that kid is clocking out. I can feel it. We're not going to get any more. Like, don't worry about it. I completely.
He's 3 more hours. No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. That kid's going to fold now. Let's get the double with the hair that looks the same and just shoot the back of his head. Yeah. But I think it took me a while to even figure out that this was even true. And it wasn't being a bossy pants person quite so much, but really, I think believing on a certain level. Because as the opposition starts to impact you, I felt as I was starting, he was invisible. And I didn't quite know what it was. And it was talking to other women directors saying, do you think that's what it is? Because we're all in this, whether it was women in the director's chair or women in film and television, we've been vetted. We made it to this level. Why does this next level seem so difficult or so distant?
That glass ceiling, it's there.
Yeah. But it's, as I say, it's disappearing, which is terrific. And it's encouraging when I meet Humber graduates and younger women who don't even know it was there to a degree. And that's a pretty great gift. At least I hope it's not there when they get there, if there's not some new one.
Gets implemented. And that's why having these conversations is so helpful. So that you don't think, oh, it's just me.
Yeah.
I think it's just me. They don't like me. It's not just you. It's
Yeah. So on that note, is there anything that that bothers you about the industry that you wish you could change? What are some things that you've seen along the way that you're like, oh, there's a fix for this. I feel we could fix this, or there's things that could be better.
I could work more. That would fix everything. I feel quite certain.
Of course.
Well, that's a funny question. One thing, my sister is a teacher. My mother was a teacher. There are so many people in education in my family. And this doesn't properly answer your question, but I did, when I was working for Rogers Spottiswoode doing second unit, get an opportunity to go to Nunavut, to Rankin Inlet, and be in the Arctic, be in the North, which is a pretty transformational experience. And lately I've been hearing, as we're having the election, people need to see the North and should experience the North. I could not agree more. And there's a part of me that feels like, as a Canadian, as a storyteller, and as a mom, if there was some apparatus in school systems, for example, to take young people to the North as a necessary part of going to high school, to find out how difficult it can be to live there, how different it is to live there, to just widen perspective. If I could change the world, that would definitely be one thing I would give Canadians. But it was a huge window as a Canadian storyteller on how circumscribed we are in the sorts of stories we used to tell about ourselves and who we think we are. I'm so excited for the success of North is North, for example, which I haven't worked on, but just watching it, it's just a delightful show. And it
really is.
Such a runaway success. So it sort of feels like proof almost that Northern stories, authentically Canadian stories with a lot of women in the driver's seat stories, are successful and can have powerful resonance in the culture, which does, of course, get back to me working. So if I could...
Yes.
I'm totally kidding.
It all comes down.
But it's funny, when you said that, I'm always banging on about everybody should find a way to get to the North. And if there was some government mandate, it would be great. Anyway, do you guys have things you would change in the business that you know?
I feel like we've had a conversation about this before, so I'm going to bring it up again, which is something I feel like Monica and I also have faced, being Canadian actors and working as, the locals here, but often seeing Americans playing the leads or playing a lot of the larger roles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any comments on that?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, as the negotiations with the CRTC are ongoing about what is Canadian content and how do we define that? What are Canadian stories? I was part of I guess it was a symposium where CRTC was asking people from the DGC, from different unions, to come and speak to what does that mean? Is it just Canadians telling stories? Is it just if we take a Canadian story, but anybody tells it? And the answer to that in my mind was no. It is Canadians telling stories. So it's difficult because I understand it's a market-driven economy of storytelling. So I understand the bias for this is a known quantity actor. it's just when I see that actor and think, but even within the community, I don't feel like I know who that performer is. It can be a little head scratching at times, and it can make you wonder, well, why not this exceptional Canadian actor whose cachet in my mind seems about the same? I don't know what the fix would be, because we are still so reliant on that interdependence with their creative economy. I mean, tariff insanity notwithstanding.
It really makes it hard to thrive as a Canadian artist. You know, I don't really have a desire to go to LA. I mean, I don't. I mean, if something presented itself, of course I would consider it. I wouldn't be like, no. But I mean, I'm happy to be a Canadian working actor, you know, and but it's getting increasingly more difficult to have a sustainable career, you know, when, there's so far and few opportunities. But hopefully, you know, I'll remain positive for now. And I'll keep chugging along.
You get to. But it's interesting. I have my Costco friends, as I call them, or the people I run into in my elevator who say that, oh, I drove by that boys TV show. Will you work on that? And I said, well, it's a DGA show and I'm not in the DGA.
Mm-hmm.
So no. But I thought it was Canadian. Well, the Grips and Electrics and all these other. So it's funny. Yes, it provides great opportunities for like literally thousands of people. But if we had more domestic production, to your point, more shows like name any of the Canadian shows, they would be staffed by Canadian directors and DPs and actors. So it just seems to me sort of obvious that the more robust the domestic production is, the better it is for the culture, the better it is for all of us in this economy working on it. So that seems to me to be the easy solve. I think American shows are going to have to do what American shows have to do.
Yeah, of course.
With the dollar.
Yeah. And I think we're learning more and more as artists, you can't just be one thing anymore. So many actors are writing or they're producing or they're getting their own stuff made so that they can, you know, get out there. So on that note too, Simone, I know you write. You've written a number of shorts that have gotten into film festivals. I know that you also are developing. Is it your first feature you're developing, Starlight? Is that?
Well, I've written another one since, but it would lead, yes, if the universe makes sense. So
do you want to talk a little bit about that? What, you know, you mentioned the one for them, one for me. This is your one for me. So what inspires you to create these stories, and how do you go about, you know, getting them made?
Well, I mean, as one sits around waiting for jobs and wondering, am I ever going to get a job? Is it me? Am I crazy? As one engages with those questions, you have to do something else. And my older son is on the autism spectrum. And when he was quite young, he was a little slow to talk, and it frightened me, to be honest. And we got him into speech therapy, and his speech is quite a verbose young fan. The speech is not a problem.
It's not a problem anymore.
Not at all. But there was a time when I worried, what if he never could talk to me? And we were in lots of different therapies to support that at the time. And I met a lot of parents who had that child who were nonverbal into their early teens, and traded experiences and listened to a lot of experiences with other parents. And I was just struck by how hard it can be to have a child that you love, that you know loves you, but doesn't have a traditional mode of communication that you can rely on to let you know on the regular, unequivocally, that they're bonded to you in the way that we just take for granted, really. And I just found myself wondering how to reconcile that in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wondered if the miraculous thing could happen and your child could speak to you when you never had an expectation that they would, under what circumstances would that occur? And what would the consequence be? So that was sort of how I came up with this story about a woman who lives in the North, yet again, the Canadian North, in the woods, really. And she has a boy who's about 17, 18, with whom she's never had a conversation. He's nonverbal. And all she's ever wanted for him is a modicum of independence. And this invisible alien comes and kind of becomes one with her son. And all of a sudden, he's able to do all of these things he was never able to do before. Brush his teeth, talk, make jokes, and let her know that he's understood and absorbed absolutely everything that she's ever kind of imparted to him. And that the fantasy that she had about their relationship is completely real. But the alien can't live on Earth. It's going to die if it stays here. So her son gets this opportunity to either go away and live with these aliens with whom he can effortlessly communicate, or stay here, but where he'd have to be safe.
Oh my God. That sounds amazing.
Is that being produced right now?
I'm working on it.
Because I want to watch that.
Yeah. Simone, have you heard there's a podcast called The Telepathic Tapes?
I have, yes.
Okay, I was curious. When you were saying that, I was thinking of that immediately. And I was like, I wonder if she's listened to that.
Yeah. Well, there's I mean, there's autistic kids. The reason I jump, kids who find a way to communicate with their parents, who we know do have a pretty rich interior life. But it takes the patience of, it's often mothers to kind of broker that rubric or that key that lets them, oh, okay, so this is how to find out what that interior life is really like.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's beautiful. I hope that gets made because it sounds like really personal and inspiring. And it has the North in there, which is which you were saying we need to see the North. So that's great.
So we are reaching our hour now,
Okay.
rounding things up. And we always like to ask our guests, our big question is, what does hitting her mark mean to you? How do you define success in your personal life, in your work life?
It's funny when you said, what does hitting your mark mean to you? I'm like, it means you're in focus. You're going to be in the right part of the frame. Yes, in the medical.
The director's answer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think it's working. It's really just getting opportunities to do this with really great people. It doesn't sound like that should be a tall order, but this industry is difficult. And as you know, as we've been saying, the opportunities to do it are not numerous. So getting a chance to work on stories that are satisfying with artists that are all excited to do them and reaching a big audience that cares. I mean, that's success. And in my family life, it's knowing that the trade-off is sort of worth it. I mean, one of the privileges of being unemployed a lot of the time is you do get to be with your kids a lot of the time and more meaningfully involved. So while the absences are long and they're hard, I'm home more of the time. So that also feels like a win just to be able to get to do this. So I guess that's what I would say to that.
That's a great answer, Simone.
Yeah, it's a beautiful answer.
Thank you for being here with us today. Really appreciate you taking the time. It was wonderful meeting you.
You guys too.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simone. I love talking with Simone. There's so many things, different things that we talked about, but something that makes me really hopeful is from her point of view, that glass ceiling really like thinning out, and her hope in seeing the people that are graduating now into this film world and not running into the same problems that she did when she started. Right. And I think that's really inspiring and really makes me feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the idea of that more and more female voices, female directors, it's not so much of a...
like an old boys club.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's more commonplace now than it ever has been, which I think is great. And she was saying that a lot of that had to do with the Me Too movement, which I think is interesting. It's great that we're seeing more, women in the director's chair. We need more female leadership. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, I love her insight into the whole casting process. And so often we hear the leads are already offered only. The leads don't have to audition. And then you get kind of like what? Because then sometimes you'll see one of those lead auditions and you're like, is this already out on offer? Like, why am I even doing this? Right? And you get really discouraged. So I like to hear that, the process is still well and good. And and what she had to say about the selection and how it really isn't this predetermined thing. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's the unexpected choice that really stands out.
And also, I didn't know what the process was for how she gets hired as a director, right? You as actors, you so often don't feel like you're in the power position, right? You're not in control of the opportunities coming your way. You're just always just fighting to get in the room, fighting to, get seen. And it's interesting. We're not alone. Everyone in this business is doing the same thing. Casting directors have to do the same thing. Directors have to do the same thing. They're auditioning too in their own lane. So that was really interesting to know that. It kind of takes a little bit of that stigma away. Like you're just like, you know what, we're all in the same boat.
Yes. And just her idea of like collaboration and in not being like, I'm the boss, you do as I say, you better know what you are doing, because I don't have time for you, right? Which sometimes as actors we feel.
And like, what actor is going to do great work when they're stressed? Like, she obviously creates an environment of, peace and harmony, and she wants everyone to feel comfortable. And I think that's the best kind of environment for actors to do their best work. So that's really awesome. Yeah, she was great. I really enjoyed that conversation. I think this will be a good episode for directors, aspiring directors, folks that want to create their own work. She's doing a lot of cool scripts right now, screenplays. This will be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.